You build an AI chatbot, it works on local, it works good in your demo also, but on production sometimes it fails. It's not about chatbot only. For most of the AI projects, they fail. Based on MIT study, almost 95% of products on AI products on production are failing. Why so? Most people think AI like a magic box, but it is not a magic box. Right? On this channel, we are going to break down how actual AI system works. What is the actual core system? Welcome to Thinking in Systems. I'm Swapnil Tripathi. On this channel, we break down AI architecture, decision frameworks, and long-term thinking for serious builders. Most of the user quits with the mostly first quarter of the year. Have you faced such scenario? Why do they fail? Because AI is probabilistic chaos in disguise. Today in this video we are going to discuss production grade architecture for serious teams. We will start with flow diagram of normal request in AI application. So we will definitely start with the some of the user query. Here you can see this is the user query, right? And first of all, user will enter some prompt or via your application, query will be initiated. It goes to orchestration. It could be AI. User request goes to orchestration layer. It could be API. It could be some other layer. Now from there, next layer would be retrieval layer. Here I have mentioned it as retrieval layer, but mostly we can say it RAG. Further in this video, we are going to discuss in detail about RAG also. How does it impact the flow in entire architecture? Now, if you see here, the core layer is foundational model. So this foundation model is nothing but your LLM. Furthermore, we will discuss how foundation model helps you. Why we, if you see this diagram here, from top to bottom, risk control happens. Then once you get the data in your foundation model, we start doing evaluation. Based on evaluation only, we understand what kind of data are we getting. Now at our next layer, which is more nothing but a guardrail, it is responsible for checking if we have any data exposure, if all the terms and conditions or all the rules like GDPR and other things are being met, and based on that responses are being generated. So this was the complete flow diagram. Now on the basis of this, we will move forward and see how 5-layer production architecture can be defined. So we will start with total 5 layers and the core layer, which we call as foundation model. So here I will zoom in and show everything one by one. First of all, we have foundation model. So basically this foundation model is core LLM. We call it large language model, which can be Gork, Llama, GPT or anything. As I mentioned earlier also, our foundation models are probabilistic model. So do what is probabilistic model? That means foundation models are not having their own intelligence. They don't know how to do fact check. They predict token, and based on chain of thought and chain of tokens, they predict entire sentence or they predict entire solutioning based on our queries. So this is foundation model. It has no its own fact checking mechanism. So it is completely based on our tool, our data, whatever we provide. Based on that, foundation model is going to predict the tokens. Next layer is retrieval layer, which we call a RAG. RAG actually is this retrieval layer, which we call RAG. And next, our next layer is retrieval layer, RAG. RAG is a vector DB. Why vector DB is required? Vector DB is required because foundation model does not have its own data, and when we start sending huge amount of data to foundation model, it starts hallucination. Just to help our foundation model with the correct kind of data with zero shot prompting, what we do, we have introduced a RAG layer. A RAG layer contains vector DB, which is like pinecone, Waviate. So here in retrieval layer, what actually happens is It contains retrieval chunks. So let's suppose you have a document which you want to send to foundation model, but you cannot send entire huge document to your foundation model. It might get hallucinated based on your data. So what we do is, at our RAG layer, we create chunks of our document or chunks of our data, and based on our context, first of all, at RAG layer, we identify what kind of data needs to be sent to foundation model along with our query or prompt. We generate context in RAG, and with those contexts and our input or prompt, we inject them into the system or inject them into the foundation model. So this is the second layer which we call RAG. Now there could be a number of trade-offs. As you can see here, we have to do chunking. There could be some latency at this layer. Along with that, because RAG will contain all kind of data, vector DB will be storing mostly data. Now we will talk about our third layer, which is orchestration layer. So when I mention orchestration layer, here you can see orchestration layer consists of workflow, logic, agents, just like LangChain, Crew AI. Now what happens at orchestration layer, we have to decide. Let's suppose we have multi models, right? So we will have to decide at orchestration layer which RAG we have to point based on our need, which LLM we have to point out based on our needs. So all these kind of agentic flows can be handled at orchestration layer. Now if you have understood the orchestration layer, it's very good. Otherwise you can comment below and I can explain it later, or maybe we can discuss it again. Now I will talk about my next layer, layer number 4, which is evaluation layer. So evaluation layer, what it does is, you have a query, you have a response, and based on that, you will have to do some benchmarking. You will have to check whatever data your LLM is returning, whatever data your RAG is returning. Do they do we have correct information? Are those data useful or not? For that we do have evaluation layer. On this evaluation layer, we can set up some monitoring. We can see if data is biased or not. We can test our data. We can set up continuous testing pipelines over there. And here it is, evaluation layer. Now on top of evaluation layer, we have our final layer, which is guardrails or risk layer. Why risk layer or guardrails? Because whatever data we have received at evaluation layer, we have already identified what kind of data it is, how does it behave. But now we will have to think about our securities, what kind of confidence do we have. We will have to set up some audit logs. We will have to check, let's suppose if we talk about different kind of domains like finance domain, healthcare domain, as you can see here. So for either for finance domain or a healthcare domain, what happens is we will have to set up guardrails. We will have to check if based on our data, even if we need to set up any token authentication, or if we have to do any audit logs, all these things can be done at guardrail layers. Now based on that, if you see here, the execution goes from bottom to top. So request will definitely come. Request, once you, this is the, if you see, execution happens from bottom to top. So first of all, your foundational model is the core system, which is probabilistic system. It does not have its own fact checking mechanism, or it doesn't know the truth. It is being trained based on the data. Now in foundational model, since you cannot overload it with the data, we have introduced a retrieval or RAG layer where vector DB resides, and based on this vector DB and chunked data, we create context, we generate prompt, and then we infuse it to foundation model. Now orchestration layer, at orchestration layer, we actually decide what kind of mechanism we have to follow. If we want to orchestrate things, like if we want to use multiple LLM, multiple RAG, we can use it here. Here I have mentioned multi-model system. So here, if you want to implement multi-model agentic flow, orchestration is the layer from where things can change. On top of it, as I explained, evaluation layer, where we will definitely evaluate what kind of data or output we are generating, if they are correct, if we want to review it, or if we want to monitor or check the accuracy, we will do it at evaluation layer. And on top of that, we do have guardrail layer, and this guardrail layer will be responsible for confidence check, threshold check, audit logs, and whatnot. So here, these are five production AI architecture layer. So if we start following this architecture, maybe from bottom to top, if we actually start introducing all these five layers and discuss and think about them, there are very less chances to the application to fail architecturally. You can comment below which layer are you missing in your system. Let's discuss it in detail. Models are very important, so is the layer. We should always ask, what kind of system are we designing? We should embrace probabilities, trade-offs, and uncertainties. And that's thinking in systems. Thank you so much. See you next time. Bye.